All right, all right. Hello, everyone. We are live, and as everyone trickles into the stream, want to say welcome, happy Friday if you're watching this live, and happy whatever day it is if you're watching this on replay. I definitely appreciate everyone who does watch replay or live. It is much appreciated, and of course, we've got Corbin here. Thank you so much, Corbin. I appreciate you in the chat supporting me there. And hello, everyone. So I've got a super fun show for you today, kind of an unofficial part two to last week's show where I talked about karma and relationships. So this week we are talking about karma and animals, and I'm going to talk a little bit about one update that I have from a client experience that I shared in a different video that I wanted to share with you guys today. We're also going to talk about diet and animal incarnations and kind of how that all works from a past life perspective, as well as pulling on some reference material from a wonderful book that I love so much. So before we get into it, definitely make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and please don't forget to share this out as well if you are thinking that someone else might enjoy this content. I love this as well. We've got our kitty Sirius joining us. So of course he's here for the animal show, right? So let me know in the chat if you've got your animal pets with you watching as well. Excited to get into this with you. Before we do though, I have a couple announcements that I want to make. First, of course, make sure that you guys go and check out my website for any information on my practices. If you're looking for more info on any of my techniques, any of the sessions available, as well as, of course, bookings. We got a lot of info on here. It's a beautiful website with lots of information for you, whether you know what you're looking for or if you're unsure. My next announcement, which I will open up the bookings page here as well, because I want to show you guys that. But my next announcement is, of course, around my group workshop coming up. So I did announce this last week as well. I'm having another group workshop, this time focusing on the future, coming up on April 19th. We're doing 3 p.m. Central Daylight Time, and I thought that I'd do the afternoon so that hopefully some other folks who maybe aren't able to make it in the morning are able to make it. I'll keep trying different times for different folks because I want to give everyone a chance to experience these awesome group workshops. So with the future progression workshop, I'll be guiding you using hypnosis techniques into the future. And so we'll be going to a future lifetime of yours to gain insight, to gain clarity on your soul's journey and your soul's kind of the arc of your soul's incarnational patterns. And so going into the future is so cool. I mean, just from that alone, but the powerful work that can be done in tapping into that future self and tapping into that version of you that's, ahead on the quantum timeline arrangement, right? Of course, time is not what we view it and understand it from this perspective. But when we're looking at the future, it's a lot about getting that inspiration, getting that spark of what's next, what's coming up for me. And when we're able to kind of jump past this lifetime, I know for a lot of people right now is it's a dynamic time, right? And regardless of where you lie on your beliefs or your understandings of the world, I think there's just a lot of big changes happening in our world. And so this is a great opportunity to kind of step beyond that and see what your soul's up to next. So if that sounds interesting to you, if you are interested in the future in any way, I definitely recommend this workshop. And if you're unsure about future life progression, or if you've been eyeing it and you want to learn a little bit more, we'll of course be going into more in depth what future life progression can do for you, as well as looking at a little bit more of how you might experience these hypnosis sessions. These are workshops that are meant for beginners as well as anyone who's had a session before. So definitely encourage you to go check that out. I've got more info on my socials as well. All right, so we talked about that a lot, but I wanted to also bring up an exciting announcement that I've got. We have a new show coming up next week. So we, being me and my wonderful husband, Corbin, he is an astrologer, and he has graciously agreed to come on and start this show with me, where we're going to be talking through the different moons. So we're going to go full moon next, which is, of course, the full moon in Libra that's happening on the 12th of April or the 13th, depending on where you are. And then we'll continue that with the new moon later in the month. And really excited to bring this to you because we've had people ask about Corbin's astrology knowledge, and I think he is just a brilliant astrologer. So I'm so excited to have him joining me and sharing in his knowledge. And then also I'll be leading us through an activation as well around the themes of this Libra moon. So definitely would love to see you there. Hope to see you there. And definitely bring your questions too, because love when people bring questions to the chat, and it's just a great experience. So all right, I think without further ado, let's jump back in here in the present. And yes, right, Corbin? I definitely find that when we're going into the future, the intentions that we set, some people can be worried about dark futures. That's not what we're tapping into here. We are tapping into the highest possible timelines. We're tapping into that best possible future for you. And so when we're looking at the future here, it's really about intention. It's about what you're looking for and what you're looking into. And so we always set that positive intention there. And yes, of course, 4/4 portal. Happy 4/4 portal to everyone today. I forgot that it was the 4th already. I can't believe it's April. All right, let's get into it. So I am just gonna switch my notes here. So like I said, we're covering a couple different topics today around animals and karma. We're getting into diet and some of the information that I've found that really resonates, and sharing that with you all. So first and foremost, I wanted to share an update from a crazy cool session that I had with a client a while back, and I did make another video on this lifetime and included some of this information in my pet reincarnation video. So I did link that in the description box below. So definitely go check that video out if you haven't, if you want to hear more about pet reincarnation, the full story of this client experience. But just briefly to share kind of what this situation was all about. My client came to the session with a few different questions, and one of their questions was around their beloved pet. So this was their cat Suki, and their kitty cat was definitely older. It was their childhood cat and had grown up with them, and they were they had this knowing, they had this sense about that their life would be ending soon, that this kitty's life would be ending soon. Then they'd be transitioning on to the next. And they came to the session with one question around this, and they were wondering if their cat would be coming back, if they would get more time with their cat. And it was just a wonderful session for a lot of different reasons. And there was a lot of hope and encouragement from their higher self around their incarnation, what was going on. And in regards to their cat, their higher self said that, yes, their cat would be coming back. And this was because they had an important mission to continue working through together. And throughout the session, their higher self shared that their cat was not only there as like a support in like a, I think most of us view our animals as support in our lives, and they give support in different ways than humans do. But this particular relationship between cat and human was one at a deep soul level. And so with this person and this cat, their souls had both come from source. They had come from the light and incarnated directly here in this incarnation. And that was because my client had an important mission of helping raise the frequency of Earth, and their cat came along to support them in that. And they used the phrase, I believe, like a light in the darkness of the Earth. And so it was just really beautiful to hear that support and that deep soul connection. And beyond that, just to know that this cat would be coming back and would be continuing to support my client as they continued their life, because of course our human lifetimes are a little bit longer than our animal friends. So it was beautiful to hear, and it was really cool to get that insight. a lot of times with sessions, the information comes through. We talk about it afterwards. I don't always hear from clients after the fact. People go on with their lives. They have, gotten the information they need, and they're ready to jump into the future. And so, just getting distracted by the chat. So good to see you, Beth. Hello, hello. Oh, and Corbin said, looking forward to it. I know, I'm looking forward to it as well. I'm really excited for our show together next week. So, um, as I said, I don't always get updates from clients after the fact, but this was one case where I did indeed get a follow up. So it was not that long after the session. I got an email from this client, and I am going to read you a bit of that email because I think it's really cool. So this client said, I've recently been catching up on your channel, this wonderful YouTube channel. So thank you for watching my videos. I just watched the pets video. I thought I'd let you know that my intuition was correct. Suki passed shortly after our session. Knowing that his soul would return to me brought peace to my dad and I while we grieved. The funny thing is that his soul is already back to me. He visited me in a dream and let me know he'd be coming. And the next day, my sister surprised me with a kitten. She is remarkably similar in temperament and knew me and snuggled into me instantly. My sister had several kittens to choose from, and my kitty pretty much demanded to be taken. She knew it was supposed to be her. I don't know how to explain this, but she basically told me, or I heard somehow, that her name is Betty. So that's what I call her. She's a ball of sunshine. My dad ended up adopting one of her sisters as well, who my intuition tells me is a reincarnation of his beloved soul cat who passed before I was born. I've attached pictures of them, which they were such cute kitties. Thank you again for all of the light and love you bring to the world. I felt so much inner peace ever since our session. So isn't that so cool? So cool. And it's one of those moments where we don't always know how events will play out, or how the information will show up in reality. And sometimes even with timing things, where you might get a timeline, things can shift and change with the future. And so it was just such a cool follow-up to get, and to have that confirmation of that cat did come back. And that's the thing about souls and soul energy, is that you can recognize each other. And I've seen this in sessions as well, where the body is different, the appearance is different, but people can recognize either pets or other humans that are showing up in past life experiences or future life experiences. And so it was just really such a cool experience, and I really wanted to share with you guys, because I think that the more that I don't often get to share the full picture, or the afterwards, the after effect, how things played out. So I wanted to share that with you guys because I thought it was inspirational. I thought it was beautiful. And this is just one way that hypnosis sessions can help. Of course, not everyone is as concerned about their pets, or maybe they have more of a knowing than others. But I think that it's just just one more way that hypnosis can help you, and tapping into your higher self can help you find comfort. Because the knowledge that this kitty's soul was coming back brought peace to my client and her family as they grieved, because regardless of what we know about life and death and reincarnation and soul patterns and such, there's still that physical loss. There's still that physical hole in your life where that person or that being used to be. Thank you, Corbin. Right, how magical. And Corbin's asking, I wonder if that client would see the same cat in a future lifetime. They seem very connected. Well, that's the interesting thing, is that this client, at least at this point, is not planning any other incarnations. This soul was told by their higher self that they'd be going right back to the light after this incarnation. And so I'd imagine that they'll be going together, but I would not be surprised if they decided on some more incarnations, if they decided to go somewhere else. I bet that cat would show up, because you're very right. They were so connected. Let me just check my notes here, make sure I'm not missing anything. Oh yeah, and it reminded me too of the session experience that I had where my client was a deer, and we explored that lifetime. Um, Excuse me here. Give me just one moment here. So explore that lifetime as a deer, and the coolest part of that session and the most important part according to the higher self was the after death experience. And when my client died in that lifetime as a deer, their energy, their soul, life force essentially kind of assimilated back into the surrounding nature energy, the collective consciousness of nature around them. And they were just like zooming around through the trees, through the water, through the sky, even through the rain. I mean, they were just like moving around in this like collective energy field, this web of energy. And it made me think about the ways that this cat's soul maybe just like had like an easy journey to get back to that body. And I've even heard with some humans that we can have almost like immediate reincarnation, where you're so stuck in the illusion of the physical world, or in the perceptions that you had when you left that life, that you don't have the same like kind of pause and reflect. It's like right into a body. And so, there's really no hard rules when it comes to incarnation. And, my client said, well, he came back really fast, uh, remembering that on the spirit side, time doesn't exist in the ways that we perceive it. And so who knows, that cat soul might have waited, um, might have spent a lot of time on the other side doing a bunch of other stuff before they came back. Who knows? Who knows? It'd be interesting to look into in a session, right? Um, but yeah, let me know down in the comments below if you've had any pet reincarnation experiences. I know some of you shared them in the last video. Please share them down below. I think it's such a fascinating topic to explore. And especially if you've had something in this lifetime where you've had a pet come back, because I know a few people had mentioned that in the comments. So thanks for sharing. We love it. I think sharing is super important when it comes to this type of information, right? All right. All right. So beyond that, definitely wanted to share that with you guys. I hope you enjoyed that session update and that session story. And wanted to get into karma and diet next. But before I do, I will of course say hello to Emma. So good to see you, Emma. Thanks so much for popping in, and enjoy the replay. It's going to be a fun show, and I hope you're having a great day. All right, so first and foremost, I want to be really clear. I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a doctor, which might surprise some of you. I know I look very medical professional, but this isn't medical advice. This isn't any sort of like diet advice. Simply sharing information that resonates with me, that I felt called to share. And beyond that, I want to be really, really clear that your diet and your requirements, like for sustaining your physical body, they're going to be unique to you. And what's right for you and what resonates with you is going to be different than other people. And so I just want to make that super, super clear as we dive into this topic, because I think that diet can sometimes be a little triggering, which totally makes sense. And that's on all sides of the dietary aisle, right? But I just want to be really clear with that. I definitely will stress this later on, to like consult your higher self, take some time to meditate, or do whatever works for you to integrate and ask those questions of like, what works for me and what is going to be the best for me in my ascension journey. So let's get into it. All right. So karma, as I talked about last week, is really, really not about punishment. It's not a punishment system. It's not about like a tit for tat sort of a situation. And if you didn't watch last week's video, definitely please go check it out. It was a great show, and I had a lot of more information around karma, especially as it relates to relationships and our kind of human interactions. So check that out if you haven't. But I definitely understand karma more as like a resonance, as a frequency. It's like a frequency match. It's really more about that balance of energies and of polarity. So I had talked last week about one of my favorite books, Yeah, I'll call it a favorite book of mine. Definitely one of my favorite people and writers. Her channeled work is just wonderful. So I do have my copy here. This is Magenta Pixie, Lessons of a Living Lemuria, Lessons from a Living Lemuria. And it's balancing karma through nutrition for ascension. So that's the context here of this book. And I wanted to read a little bit from Magenta around her take and her guide's take on karma, because I think that it explains it well, and actually aligns really well with my understanding of it too. For those who don't know Magenta Pixie, she is a channel, and she channels the White Wing Collective Consciousness of Nine, which is essentially her guides. These are a higher dimensional version of herself that she channels down. And she writes these books that are exploring different topics, and she asks questions of her guides and then channels that information. So just catching up on the chat here. Oh, yes. Enjoy the sunshine, and hello to your family. Right? Corbin saying, I cannot begin to emphasize how much my diet has changed over the last few years. I mean, me too. Absolutely. I mean, huge shifts and changes, and that makes sense. We live together. We diet together. We have the same meals. So definitely, we've had a lot of changes over the last couple of years, and that's been since becoming vegan. Because as Magenta talks about it too, sometimes that first initial step into a plant-based diet, especially in today's modern age, is a lot of very processed, chemically BS food, which when you're transitioning might taste okay at first, but it really doesn't taste the same after you start eating real whole foods. So, oh, and we've got Sylvia popping in to say hello. Lots of love to you as well, Sylvia. Thanks so much for watching the replay. I know it's very late for you guys over there, so definitely appreciate you popping in to say hi. Good to see you. So let me read you that passage here from the book. And this is around karma. So it says, that which you call karma is simply the law of your universe. It is that which is magnetic polarity, striving for individual and thus planetary and cosmic balance. It is not that which you are given as in a gold star if you are good, or reduction in a point system if you are bad. It is not outside of you. It is a part of you. It is the method or substance that the architect chose to be the means in which her children should remember that they are the architect. It is a memory activation tool. You may perceive this as lessons, repeated universal teachings that come forward in many forms until you finally learn the lesson. Indeed, this is an accurate presentation of the experience. Yet, in truth, what you are doing here is seeing yourself, knowing yourself, and balancing yourself. This is what we mean when we use the term karma. It is neither positive or negative in the sense of good or bad. It is positive and negative only in the sense of polarity and balance. Now, we have presented a most basic picture of the karmic law within your universe. We may respond to your questions. So, I just think that the way that the Nine put it, the way that Magenta shares this definition of karma, this understanding of karma, just really resonates with me. And I think that this is, of course, requiring us to step up to a certain level to have that perspective, because so much of the 3D world, or the mainstream world that we see and exist in here on planet Earth, really does have a lot of that polarity in a good bad sense. There's been a lot of putting things on that binary, and labeling things as good or bad, and all of the emotions that come up with that, all of the stuff that comes with that. So of course there is good and bad on planet Earth, but when we're looking at karma, I just don't think that that's the most helpful way of looking at it, because karma is something that works on that quantum. It works on that life to life, big picture kind of view. And so if you're so stuck in good or bad karma, it's going to be hard for you to break out of that cycle. It's going to be hard for you to recognize the ways that that karma is a part of you, that energy is a part of you, and you have power to work with it and to influence it, right? Karma is not something that happens to us, just like life is not something that happens to us. It's something that we engage with. It's something that we work with. So I think that that's a really important piece to remember. And right, I know Magenta's books are always the best read aloud. I know, I agree. It doesn't have quite the same oomph when you read it in your head. Um, so diet and karma. I think the question that I had coming up was, well, I should explain how diet affects our karma and how it's tied up in that. Essentially, the way that I've broken it down, the way that I've understood it, is that our diet is essentially that universal energy or that life force that we're taking in, that we're integrating into our being, and then we're using that energy to then accomplish the life we're living, right? So eating is definitely a part of our physical experience, at least for the vast majority of us here on planet Earth. I've heard tales of folks who don't need to eat, who are those breatharians or soaking up the light codes and surviving off of that. But at least the vast majority of us in the collective are eating people. We've got to eat some sustenance to get us through. And it's interesting though, because I don't believe that it's always been this way, especially when we're looking at something like Lemuria, a past age of humanity. I think that eating and diet looked very different there. And so, really, when we're looking at diet and looking at previous versions of it or blueprints for how we should eat, I think it's important to understand, okay, where are we at now and what's the reality now? And so there's so much that goes into food and diet, and it's definitely, beyond the scope of just this video. I mean, I think someone could make a whole channel about diet and all of this stuff. But all in all, I think that understanding uh the realities of our current day, understanding where we're at currently in our life, in our um, you know, you're going to have a different diet if you're have a manual labor job and you're doing heavy work every single day. You're going to need to eat differently than someone who spends most of their day meditating. That's going to be a different energy level. That's going to be a different vibration and frequency that you're going to be embodying and being and bringing into the world. And so I definitely think that, again, discernment is important, and finding what works for you and trusting in your own intuition as far as your diet is going to be the most impactful. um just a little bit of a side note here. Been following down the Tartaria rabbit hole lately, and looking into kind of the past in a new lens, in a different lens. And I dabbled a little bit up until this point, but we've really kind of gone down the rabbit hole, which I know a lot of you have as well, and it's super fun. But one of the most interesting things that came through was this idea that maybe more recently in our past than we think, there were people who weren't eating food in the ways that we were, that they didn't have to eat, or they didn't have digestive systems in the way that we did. And so I think, in some ways the truth can be stranger than fiction, because there's some evidence for this. There's some clues, some breadcrumbs that were left for us. I just think it's fascinating. I think that the more that we can be open to other ways of living and being, and alternate realities, like the more that we'll be able to graciously step into more of a multiverse awareness, which I think we're being called to. So let's see. So as I was saying, I think that eating is, number one, kind of a part of what we do, but it also is, I think, a part of this separation that we're experiencing at this time, during our stage of evolution. The evolution of humanity has been described as a spiral. So it's, this kind of circling back and yet going higher still, and it's like returning and revisiting the cycles, but in a different way. And so I think that at this current point, we're experiencing some pretty extreme duality, some pretty extreme polarity, individualization, and separation in the ways that we exist within our world and in the consciousness, the sea of consciousness that we exist. And so I think that as our perceptions and our paradigms shift, I think that our diet is going to shift as well. And so I think as we ascend, as we evolve as humans, as we move towards um, the next stage in our evolution, I think that our needs to eat will shift. And I think that it really is important to emphasize that this isn't likely to happen overnight for most of us. These sorts of paradigm shifts um, might happen over generations. This could be something that shifts and changes. I know that people talk about the kids being born now and recently being very different from even those of us born a little bit earlier, and that there is this generational shift. And as new physical bodies are manifested by new souls, there's going to be shifts as well. So certainly don't claim to have all the answers. I don't know what the timeline is going to look like, but I thought that was an interesting piece and wanted to mention that. Um, and the ideas of where we're going and kind of that eventual goal of um, is essentially light beings, right? We hear this a lot with Homo luminous ones. A lot of people are talking about light beings and this shift that we're making. And there's also this idea, and Magenta talks about it in her book as well, about us shifting into essentially living off of light and only needing that to survive. And so I definitely am not suggesting that any of you stop eating food and that you try to live off of light. Certainly get out in the sun and get that light, get those codes, soak it up. It's important, but we are not collectively at the point where we're all eating light. It's just not where we're at right now. And I think that many, though, have felt a call to shift towards this. And I know talking to other folks and other people, there's definitely some feelings around shifting and changing and kind of feeling that call towards something else and shifting in that direction. So that essentially kind of brings me around to what that ideal diet for ascension is. And certainly I'm kind of giving you an overview here. I'm kind of touching on a few things and wrapping it up in kind of a past life container. But I definitely recommend reading Magenta's book on this, or doing your own research, finding some other books on this sort of a concept. Because I think it's really important to always be learning and taking other people's perspectives and information and the knowledge that they bring through from the higher dimensions, using our discernment and deciding what resonates and what works for us. But I think the more that we can explore, the better. But I wanted to read another section from the book. Let me get a quick glass of water here. And the next question that was answered that I wanted to read was, what food should we eat in order to reach enlightenment and go through ascension? So they start out by saying, there is no should here. Ascension has many stages, and one can move through an ascension experience regardless of dietary consumption. However, if one wishes to move through a fully aware ascension process in the most aligned way available to you at this time, which is what we call accelerated or Stargate ascension, one would need to have moved to that stage of mastery achieved by the indigenous peoples, which is akin to being karma-free. One needs to be as light as possible. The way forward here, if it is your calling and your desire, is to follow a predominantly plant-based way of eating. Consuming small amounts of sustainably raised animal flesh, specifically seafoods, or animal products, eggs and dairy, eaten infrequently would not affect this Stargate ascension process. However, if a large amount of animal flesh, even sustainably raised seafoods, is eaten, then these codes tie you or bind you into the physical dimension, or in the case of seafoods, the astral dimensions. This is likely to affect your ability to raise in frequency high enough to reach full, free, fifth dimensional energy, or what we may call permanent residence in the new earth, or permanent fifth strand activation. So, definitely a lot there. And I think that a lot of times when I'm reading magenta, I kind of absorb it as at a subconscious level, and then it kind of processes and soaks in at more of that conscious level as I go along. And definitely something that reading it multiple times is great. But I think that the idea of plant-based eating can be a little triggering to some people. And again, I'm not emphasizing that this is the path for you. I'm just presenting this information and encouraging you to make your own assumptions, understandings, and really reflect on this for yourself. But I think that when we're looking at plant-based too, this is really about a whole foods diet. This is really about eating fruits and vegetables, eating nuts, eating, the actual real food that is whole rather than eating like plant-based in a modern kind of diet trend way. I don't know about y'all, but I've been vegan for 8 years. And even in those 8 years, things have changed dramatically. And we've had just such a shift from it used to be that like tofu and tempeh were the only things that were available in the grocery store, and that was just like plain, you know, standard soybean protein stuff. Now you can get literally so many different kinds, different things, different shapes, different pressings, different flavorings, and then you have all of the like plant-based burger stuff that's going on. And you know, I used to eat a lot of that sort of thing. I definitely remember some early years in Corbin and I's relationship where we would eat those little like fake vegan chicken nugget things like twice a week. It was uh not the best meal. Really, I mean, there's really nothing to it. I mean, if you look at the packaging, if you eat those things, you'll know there's just nothing to it except for crap. um and sometimes they can taste good, don't get me wrong, but I think that it's something where there's been such an alteration and such a processing of whatever original food stuff like went into that, where like sure it came from a plant at one point, but it is not a plant anymore. It has been processed beyond that. And uh yeah, I think it's just something that needs to be emphasized too, is that we're talking about more of that whole foods, uh actual like real food from the earth kind of thing. um but the karma that comes from eating animals, the karma that comes from eating meat or animal products, really comes down a lot to the consciousness of animals. So uh more specifically, magenta talks about like the fear frequency that is put into, I shouldn't say put into, but it is essentially absorbed into the animal's flesh within the factory farming conglomerate, the modern factory farms that happen. And the fear frequencies are essentially like encoded into that animal's flesh, and then when you eat it, you take those codes into yourself. And certainly I think that this concept, I'm talking specifically about animals here, but this concept applies to all food as well. I know, I'm sure a lot of you have had this experience where you've gone to a restaurant and the food might have looked good. Maybe it was good last time, but there's just something wrong about it. It just doesn't taste right. I definitely find that depending on the place I go, depending on the energy and the vibe of the place, depending on who makes that food, it's going to taste different. And those intentions, that energy is coded into that food and that energy that you're taking in, and you take that into yourself. And so I think that is just something that is really important to reflect on. It's something that's important to think about, especially when we're coming from a spiritual standpoint, when we're coming from this ascension standpoint, because ultimately that's what it boils down to when we're talking about karma, and when we're talking about these bigger themes of releasing karma or of being karma free, because karma is part of the mechanism of this physical world that keeps us in the earthbound cycle. There's of course free will when it comes to incarnating and all that, but you as a soul, you're bound to your karma, and it's not something you can outrun. And so, oh, hello, So good to see y'all. I assume it's Lisa behind there, but hello to Johnny and to Emma as well. We love you guys over at Deep Dives in the Desert. Good to see ya. So ultimately, I think that the fear frequency stuff that gets wrapped up into the meat, as well as the eggs and the dairy and such, is definitely a big part of it. Uh, so the bare minimum, or I guess if you're eating meat, the suggestion, and Magenta talks about this too, the suggestion is eating local, farm raised food. This is, non-GMO stuff. It is animals that are raised in a farm setting, in not that factory setting. They're essentially having that better life, right? And this is certainly something that I think is important if you are feeling called to eat meat, is to source your meat responsibly and as much as you can, just like with any of your food, honestly. And we'll get more into plants in a moment. But with meat, where does it come from? Who's raising those animals? How are they treated? What's the energy and the vibe there? Because again, animals have consciousness. It is a different consciousness than us, but it is consciousness. And, I've seen this in sessions where I've had clients regress to lifetimes as animals. That's not something um, that is just a casual thing. I mean, there is evolution of souls through the animal lifetimes into human lifetimes. Dolores Cannon talks a little bit more about this, and I don't think it's necessarily like a linear thing where like you go from a mouse to a dog to a horse to a human or something like that. I don't think there's any like rhyme or reason necessarily there, but it's certainly. Oh, hi, Lisa. Okay, good. Um, but I think it's certainly something that factors into this because, again, it's like there is soul consciousness to those beings, and I think that reverence and understanding for that, recognition of that, requires some thoughtful consumption. Which is, I think, one of the big things that Magenta talks about that in her book as well. One of the big things that I definitely have learned as I've explored this plant-based, this vegan, diet and kind of the alternatives to it. The indigenous peoples, the tribal peoples of the world, have a much different relationship with eating meat and with killing animals for that purpose than the vast majority of other folks, right? And this is not every tribal person, this is not every indigenous person, but in general, these folks, these communities, these societies have that reverence. They have that respect for animals, and they are able to and they go through that process of killing the animal and eating the animal in a reverent way, with ritual and with respect, and with full awareness and understanding of the relationship that they're having. And I think that this is similar when we look at animals in nature, where you have more predators and prey, where it's like there is this understanding, there's this soul contract between those creatures, those beings, I should say, who are then agreeing to this exchange of energy. And I think it's much more convoluted than not, but I think that it's an important piece here. And I see Lisa saying, I agree, I've seen this too. Can incarnate as an animal. Oh yeah, absolutely. And I don't think that it's necessarily like you know we incarnate as animals like way back in our past. I think it's something that can ebb and flow. I don't think that it's often that we go from like a human being into an animal life, uh, because of the complexities of humanity and of a human lifetime. It's a little bit different, and so if you were doing that, I think it would be a specific situation. There'd be some lessons you were learning, or maybe it was like a rest lifetime. Maybe you have like a chill life as a cat because the cat just gets to nap all day and get treated and pampered like royalty. And maybe you choose that for more that resting period. But yeah, it's super interesting to think about, I think, from this perspective. And and again, it really boils down to the consciousness of these beings and being conscious of the relationship that you have if you're eating those animals and doing it in a mindful way. Um, because much of the meat that is available today, much of the meat you buy in the supermarket, whatever, is going to be coming out of the factory farming conglomerate, and the the situations that these animals are put through in those places is baking that fear into them, and it's really not good for us to ingest that. Um, okay, you're right, Corbin. Corbin's saying cats do more than just nap, so much energy work. Okay, I'll give you that. I'll give you that. Uh, maybe what would be a better animal? I don't know. Honestly, I'd love to be a whale. I know it's kind of rough out there for whales right now, with the world that we've created for them, but or the situations we put them in, But I would love to be a whale, to be moving through the ocean like that. Oh, maybe I have in a past life, right? All right, keeping track of time here. All right. So the next logical question that I asked myself is, is there a way to eat meat and not accrue karma? And the real answer is no, because karma is wrapped up in that relationship. And Magenta mentioned like being karma free in the indigenous people's way, and that's really about essentially like balancing that karma out immediately, and that's through the reverence, through the respect. I don't claim to necessarily know how all the intricacies work, but I think that I think it's much more difficult to eat meat or eat animal byproducts, and not accrue the karma in a normal way. Um, One of the ways, though, that Magenta talks about is the ways that people who are unaware of the suffering are going to have like a lesser accrual of karma. And with all of these terms like lesser and more and positive and negative, I mean these are terms that help us to understand things within our context of the spoken language, but there really isn't that sort of a lesser than, greater than perspective from the higher self perspective, right? But essentially not many people who are on an ascension journey who are concerned with this content or with their karma in general, not many of them are going to be unaware of the suffering of the animals within the factory farming situation. And um, and I think that beyond that, um, if you're concerned about your karma, like you're going to want to be aware of these things, and really you're going to be given a moment, or a few moments from your higher self, from your guides, these moments where they show you what's going on, or they give you a sign, they give you a message like, hey, this is the diet for you, or hey, you need to be aware of this karma that you're accruing, or there's those wake up calls, there's those messages from our higher selves or from our guides that show us these things. And so it's really unlikely that you're going to be in that boat and watching this video, or in that boat and thinking about ascension and karma. Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing, Lisa. So Lisa said, I had a client who seemed to have several difficult human lives with restriction and hardship, chose to be a bird and a butterfly for freedom before coming back as human. Hey, perfect example there. That's wonderful. So fascinating. And for those of you who don't know Lisa over at Deep Dives in the Desert, she offers wonderful sessions, readings, working with understanding your ascension journey or experiences, experiences beyond the veil, experiences in other dimensions, in your dreams, psychic experiences. She's a wonderful resource. So definitely check them out over there. And I agree, right? So fascinating. Um, all right. So I really think, though, one thing I want to stress as well is that with your diet, with whatever choice you make, it's really about your intention and how you're going about it. And I think that that is something that is true in most areas of life, and in most ways that we exist, is that our intentions and our um, what we're going into something with is going to determine the outcome, the consequences, whatever it might be. And so I think intention is really key here. And so I have another section that I wanted to read to you guys quickly here. I know we're getting close to the hour, but I really want to paint you the full picture here. So the next section that I wanted to read from says, when one becomes fully plant-based in their eating habits and thus takes the label that you refer to that is vegan upon your planet, one must also hold the compassion for life and the desire to inflict as little suffering as possible within this mindset. The intention is everything here. The action of being the vegan through dietary means and lifestyle is the manifestation to the intention. If the intention is pure and focused, then the switch from creating karma from animal consumption into freedom from the creation of that karma is instantaneous. It matters not, therefore, if one has been vegan for 1 hour, 1 day, 1 year, or 1 decade, if the intention is pure and focused. And continues on about that idea. But I think that it's interesting, especially when we look at, again, the plant-based diet in the modern sense and the way that a lot of folks out there treat this diet. Excuse me, guys. I had a cold earlier in the week, so I'm still having some of that working its way out. But anyway, I think that intention is really key. And I think that when we look at the plant-based diet, a lot of people choose it for health reasons rather than like, I remember when I became vegan, and to this day, I still get asked this question of like, well, you're vegan. Why are you vegan? Is it health or is it like your feelings or whatever? Is it about the animals? And so I think that for me, it was definitely both. The ways that meat and animal products made me feel didn't really align with how, like, I felt better eating plants. And so it was sort of a health thing. It was sort of like how I felt. But then more than anything, it was really the suffering that I was shown, because I was very, very frankly shown the suffering of the factory farming and of like the meat industry. And I realized, like, I've seen it and I can't unsee it. I can't continue to participate in this. And so again, I think that there's a big difference between being plant-based for just like trendy reasons and being plant-based for these intentional reasons, right? And so yeah, I think it's really important. And I think it really helps us to understand too the ways that these sorts of switches can happen instantaneously. It's not like, oh, I need to be vegan for 20 years before I've worked off my karma. Because again, it's not this punishment system, it's about intention. And these sorts of things work into that quantum viewpoint of the world, I think, in the ways that things can happen instantaneously. Oh, and I'm getting so distracted by the chat because we've got the lovely Brent Merritt here. So good to see you. You did come for a little bit. I appreciate it. Fantastic to see you as well. Oh, I love this. All right, sorry guys, getting distracted by the chat. So the next question that I thought would be a good one to answer as we wrap things up today is, what about plants? If consciousness is in everything, well, then plants have consciousness too, right? So how does that factor into all of this? So I have one more section that I wanted to read from the book here on that. So the question is, so what about plants? Are you not consuming another being's life force when you eat plants? Surely they have a will to live also. Because they talk about like the will to live that animals have, and that you're overriding that when you kill them to eat. So talking about the will to live, they say this is what we mean when we say that plant-based eaters do not need to consume the life force of another being in the same degree. So in the same degree. Animals hold an individualized consciousness like humans. They have far more herd or pack mentality, but they hold individualized consciousness. They therefore resist death. That resistance to death is in the same proportion to their will and desire to live, and thus the karma accrued by those who choose to consume them. Plants do not hold individualized consciousness. They are a collective consciousness. They exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. When a carrot is plucked from the ground, indeed, in that moment, it does not want to cease living. Yet within the collective consciousness, the awareness remains for life for that carrot. The blueprint within the higher dimensions remains. These blueprints contain information, and that information needs to be passed into the physical dimension in order for the entire dimension to upgrade. The being that consumes the correctly grown carrot, or whichever plant it may be, receives the information code. The information code is geometric language within light. It is received when the foodstuff is eaten in its raw or original state only, due to the overall desire for light codes to be passed through the plant food, and it goes on. So I'll trail off there, but I think that this is a really important piece to remember, and harkens back to that deer lifetime, right, where we saw that deer soul kind of assimilate back into that collective consciousness of nature. And I really think that there is much more interconnectedness, especially with the plants. I mean, we can see this on a physical level, right, with the mycelium and the way that they connect to the trees. And so I think that that connection between all living things, all of the plants and the trees and such, it's multidimensional too, right? And so I think there's definitely something there with the ways that plucking that individual carrot doesn't erase the collective carrot consciousness, right? It's essentially you're taking a bit of it, but there's still that whole left. And so I think it's just a different form. And again, it's not about which is better or which is worse. And I'll keep harkening on that, but it's really about what is resonant for you, and what path are you on? What diet works best for you? Oh, hello, Stephanie. So good to see you. Thanks so much for popping in. Appreciate you stopping and watching. Sorry guys, I'm working with my notes on another monitor, and like getting my mouse from screen to screen is a challenge sometimes. So, like I was talking about with that interconnected field of consciousness, the idea that animals are different than plants because they're more individualized. They have more of that separated consciousness, even though they still maintain more of that herd or pack mentality. We look at the way that birds fly together, and they can communicate and move together almost as though they're one being, right? And we see the same with like large herds of animals as they're running through a forest or a meadow, or whatever it might be. We see them moving as one, and so there's much more of a connection than the ways that humans can stampede and then they just kill a bunch of each other because they can't work together and people get crushed. And it's horrible stuff, but that metaphor, that illustration. So glad that you were able to catch me as well, Stephanie. Thanks for coming. All right, so there's definitely, I pulled a few bits from kind of the earlier pages of this book. It is a dense book, and there's a lot that they go into as far as diet and more specifics, and really fleshing out this whole concept of a diet of ascension. And so I definitely, again, encourage you to read the book, encourage you to do your own research as far as this goes. But it really all boils down to what your intentions are and your personal choices and what resonates with you. Because Magenta goes into kind of the different diets that might be out there, whether that be a meat eater, you might be a pescatarian, you might be a vegetarian and you eat milk, or you eat eggs, or you might be vegan and be totally plant-based. There's also definitely, more extreme vegan diets where you're going raw and you're only eating raw vegetables or raw foods. We've tried to integrate some more raw foods into our diet, and more raw recipes and such like that, which is great. It's wonderful stuff, but is somewhat challenging to do for every day, for every meal. I certainly respect those who do it. Excuse me, guys. Like I said, I became vegan 8 years ago, after I was shown undeniably the suffering that animals go through in the mainstream meat situation. And again, I grew up in hunting country. I grew up in northern Minnesota where people hunt deer all the time. And I mean, we had venison growing up. And even then, like I could tell the difference between store-bought meat that we got at Walmart and the meat that was venison that our friends hunted or whatever. Even not awake, I had a sense as to the difference between those two things. And certainly I chalked it up more to like the nutritional value of it all. But I think that there was an energetic side to that and an energetic component to it as well. But definitely, I think that it really boils down to which diet resonates most with you. Because one of the things Magenta talks about and the Nine talk about is that they say, if you take on a plant-based diet and you are like miserable, if you take on a plant-based diet and you're just upset all the time and all you want to do is eat meat, that's not better. That miserableness, that frequency of that emotion is bringing you down. And so they say like it's really better to just eat the meat if you want to eat the meat, if you need that meat. I have a friend who was vegan for a long time and then went back to eating meat and saw a huge improvement in her physical health, in her mental health, in her well-being, in her dietary regimen. It was just a much better choice for her. And so there is, again, like they were saying in the book, there's no should to your diet. It's really about what works for you. And I present this information to give you a little bit of my take and my understanding and some of the information that's resonated with me as I've continued along this vegan journey. But yes, as Stephanie's saying, everyone is so different. Oh yeah, and yeah, Stephanie, I definitely recommend watching from the start because we've been chatting about Magenta Pixie and her wonderful book, Lessons from a Living Lemuria, which I encourage you all to go and buy and read for yourself because it's great. But yeah, if you're watching this channel, I'd assume that spirituality is somewhere in your wheelhouse. I'd assume that you're somewhere along that journey. And whether or not you're consciously working towards ascension, I think that considering your diet, considering what you're consuming and how you're consuming it is valuable. It is really important. And one of the biggest switches that has helped us is like eating more homemade food, eating more whole foods, really focusing on eating the rainbow. That's one saying that we say a lot is like, got to eat the rainbow. So, you have your salad with your green and your yellow and your red and your purple and your orange and your blue, and try to get all of the different colors within your diet because that will give you all of those different nutrients and energies and what have you. So yeah, I definitely encourage you all to take a look at your diet, think about it in the context of karma, because at this time in history, we are at a point where we are being called to clear a lot of that karma. We are being called to sort through, understand, integrate, and release so much of the past. And that's past lives. That's our past in the current lifetime. And we're being called to do this because we are embarking upon a new journey. We are starting a new chapter. We are stepping into the new paradigm of the age of Aquarius, right? And I think that it's just another way that we can work consciously within this world that we live in, and our diet and the energy that we consume, the foods that we eat, it is our energy. It is what we're building our body with, and we want to be building it with the best stuff. And so the more that you can grow yourself, or if you are going to eat meat or eat eggs or dairy, like the more you can raise them yourself and really be intentional with that in sharing your love with these animals and giving them love and support and care and a nice comfortable life. And I think that intentionality and that partnership, you caring for that animal, changes the karma. That's a different relationship than you going to the supermarket and buying that factory farmed beef, right? Very different frequency, very different relationship, very different karma. So Beyond that, if you're unsure, if you have questions around your diet and want to know more, a session is a wonderful way. A hypnosis session is a wonderful way to ask these questions of your higher self. I've had people come with these sorts of questions of like, hey, should I become vegan? Or hey, what kind of workout should I be doing? Or what physical activity should I be doing? It's just a next level way of researching information and tapping into your higher self to get that highest clarity, that highest guidance that you can tap into, in order to make the best decisions for your current life. Because one of the best things about hypnosis and a session, whether you're doing regression or progression, is about looking at your life in the context of the incarnations of all of your lifetimes, and being able to kind of step out of the mire of the current lifetime to get that clarity, get that insight, to get that understanding. Because the more that we can work from that quantum, and stepping out of more of the 3D life that we're living, the more we can consciously move through this 3D life and spread the light and fulfill our missions in the way that we're being called to. So, all in all, I think we'll leave it there. We're at what, 406? Yeah, we'll leave it there. I am gonna pull back up my. Oh wait, before I do that, I need to switch. Sorry guys, one moment here. Here we go. Oh, and I see. I am a kitchen witch. It's true. I make a lot of food. I bake. I definitely put a lot of intention into the food that I make, and that, beyond just like dietary choices, I think making your own food is a big thing. And of course, we don't all have the lifestyles that allow us to do that. Some people are very busy. Some people rely on their spouse or what have you, for that. But yeah, I'm happy to share my kitchen witchery with you, Corbin, and to share some of my experiences with diet and with food with y'all. So I definitely hope that it has been valuable and that you enjoyed the content today. Please don't forget, I've got my group workshop coming up. The group Future Life Progression Workshop will be exploring future lifetimes and looking into your next lifetime to give you some clarity, to gain some insight, to also like see what the future's like, because there's a lot of possibilities out there. It's pretty cool. So definitely that is happening on the 19th of April. That's a Saturday at 3 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Tickets are available on my website, my booking page, which is here. You can look at the group workshop here. You just click in, you'll select the time, and then you'll get to log out, or get to check out and do all of that. Other than that, hope to see you all next week, joining me and Corbin and I for our full moon in Libra astrology and activation show. So excited to bring lunar cycles to you all, and I think it's going to be a really exciting experience. I have the privilege and honor of listening to Corbin talk astrology a lot, and so I'm so excited to have him stepping in front of the camera and bringing this information to you guys. I think it's going to be super fascinating. He's got just a wonderful take and wonderful understanding of astrology. And those of you who know astrology know that there's just so many different ways of understanding this complex system. And I love Corbin. So that's going to be fun. I'll be walking you through an activation meditation around the lunar themes. So don't miss that. Other than that, I just want to thank everyone again for coming, enjoying this live. Thanks for sticking it out with me. I really do appreciate you all so much. And I'm wishing you all a wonderful weekend or a wonderful week, depending on if you're watching this on replay too. So definitely looking forward to seeing y'all in the next show, and sending you all the love and the light. All right. Bye for now, y'all.